But realistically, we truly believe that we're saving lives with these products. And, that also kind of helped us transition more so into our permanent electrical safety devices. Yep. And these are going to be solutions that are geared more towards, I would consider, low voltage, but specifically as it relates to kind of what we're going to be discussing today. I don't love this term, but I say like higher, lower voltage.
And it's kind of like
I don't know how would you explain it?
I mean, I guess I look at it as like, so low voltage, and it depends on who you ask, is always
that definition is the thing. I agree. If you ask multiple people and poll them, you're probably going to get a different definition.
Changes. But I guess the way we look at it is low voltage is anything below 1,000 volts. AC and DC, then you get into the medium voltage range above 1,000 essentially. So I kind of look at it as the products and devices that we're going to be talking about in this side of things will fit into like the medium voltage realm, but it's on the lower voltage of the medium voltage side of things, if that makes sense at all. But and that's partially what we wanted to do over the last year or two is innovate into the market needs. And a big thing that we've seen in the market through customer conversations, through the electric vehicle space, on heavy industrial equipment, or the solar industry as well, as they've needed to increase their voltage to be able to do their production lines for batteries, for solar, to be able to make things more efficient, et cetera.
Combiner boxes and solar array fields, things of that nature.
So they've needed to go above that 1,000 volt DC threshold to 1,500 volts DC, to some heavy industrial machinery for the mining industry. We're working with 2,200 volts DC. So there needed to be a safe, productive, easy way to be able to confirm dead that, hey, it's okay for me to open up this panel and work on this equipment safely and efficiently. So we kind of came out with this new version of our ChekVolt that's actually rated up to 3,000 volts DC to help with those markets like the solar.
Kind of hard to see a little bit here, but I'm gonna try to. Oh, here we go. Look at that, and it's has a nice little set screw here. Let me see if I can unscrew that. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is our 3K DC ChekVolt. And as Ben was mentioning, this is the line load. So you can see it has, two test points for line, 2 test points for load. And the whole idea there is that it is an externally mounted device. Yep. And sticking with that theme on the Graceport side, right, we want to keep that enclosure door closed. Yep. The whole idea there, if you imagine the hierarchy of risk controls, elimination, substitution, or engineering around that risk, I believe are the first few buckets of that hierarchy of risk control. And then at the bottom, right, we identify and we understand that PPE is a necessity, right? And what I would say is kind of my understanding of PPE is that generally that's like the last line of defense.
It is, and it's usually, from our conversations, the first step a lot of facilities take to safety.
Isn't that unfortunate? Just instead of finding alternatives, they suit up in high cal PPE and they expose themselves to a lot of inherent risk.
Yeah, and with PPE, even though it can save you from the shock side of things, unfortunately, if an arc flash does happen, you're going to get a blowback, an explosion, literally. And you could be blown off a ladder, you could be through a wall, into a wall. And unfortunately, the PPE gear isn't going to help or save you in that circumstance. And that's why if your facility chose PPE as your first step, that's great. It's something, it's a start, which is awesome.
The best time to act is now.
Yep. And then that's where a lot of our devices fit in, is kind of higher up that hierarchy of control side of things. And if you can get into the elimination stage of where you completely eliminate the risk from the personnel, is the ideal scenario. And sometimes, there's no other way about it, where you may have to suit up in high cal PPE and do some live work. That's sometimes just part of the job and what you have to do. But we want to help you guys, as much as humanly possible, to be safer and more efficient at the daily tasks that you guys have to do over and over and over again. And the thing is too, and what we've chatted about yesterday, is it's similar of like, we get super used to things that we work around, the dangers that we work around.
I mean, you establish habits and routine, and those habits form routines. And those routines kind of, depending on your process, right, can kind of start to develop not the best case scenario in terms of how you achieve something.
Yeah, and in the electrical industry, obviously, we all know electricity is dangerous and can be very hazardous and can unfortunately take lives. But when we're working around it every single day, it can be easier to kind of forget or let those concerns about that hazardous voltage kind of go by the wayside. It's just like kind of, for me, I grew up watching The Crocodile Hunter and seeing
oh man, could you imagine like trying to wrangle a crocodile there?
No, and that's obviously extreme risk of working with crocodiles or venomous snakes or whatever it might be. But that's because it's something, I view that as one, I'm not in that industry.
Yeah, you're not a crocodile wrangler, right?
No. But unfortunately, even those guys can end up getting bitten, we'll say. And it's the same thing in our industry with working with electricity. It's unfortunately a matter of time, really, where before you know somebody who got shocked or went through an arc flash. It's not a matter of if. Unfortunately, it does happen in our industry. So we want to try to put in things, whether it's procedures or devices, to prevent that as much as humanly possible and decrease the number of arc incidents, because it's not just a United States thing that has this issue. It's globally in every single country where arc flashes occur, and unfortunately workers do get injured and hurt. So we want to help everybody make sure these things are very aware of and help people avoid this as much as possible. And that's kind of why we got into the permanent electrical safety device side of things, because although most or a lot of the electrical incidents happen at low voltage, but
generally with performing a contact test with a meter, right? Open door, right?
Yep. Unfortunately, you might touch something that you're not
incidental
supposed
contact,
to,
making, with a live conductor, or maybe there's something stray on your PPE and it kind of attaches to something. There's just a lot of inherent risk there.
Yeah, there is. And that risk doesn't go away on that 1 kV to 3 kV side of things. And that's where, we came up with this 3 kV ChekVolt for the solar industry, electric vehicle industry. And Chris, we've had a few really unique applications within the mining industry in terms of this 3 kV product.
I will say this, like mining vehicles, unless you've actually physically been in front of one, it's hard to understand the full scope and scale of how truly massive they are. So I actually had the opportunity to visit one of our mining customers in Australia, where I actually physically was out on the production floor environment. And as I was standing next to the actual mining vehicle, I wasn't even as tall as the tire. I'm 6'1".
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't even get halfway up the tire.
No, I mean, just the full scale and scope of these types of different applications. What I love about my job is that no one application is ever the same. I feel like I come into work every day and I engage with customers and they're like, hey, we're looking at our electrical safety program. This is our application. And it's an application that I've never heard of or actually seen in practice. So the whole idea and the premise of the point I'm trying to make here is, whether you're kind of early on in your electrical safety journey, or you've investigated products and you're looking for safer alternatives, we would love to chat with you.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that ties back to our ability to continually innovate and improve our products to ensure that we are developing products that are fitting need in the marketplace.
Yeah, and kind of the need, for example, for this mining project that we're talking about with this super large vehicle. And one, like Chris said, the tire is probably the size of my garage. So, I mean, I could live in this thing basically as my house. It's maybe even bigger than a lot of houses.
It's massive in terms of its scale.
But in the mining industry, so a lot of these electric vehicles that are going inside these open pit or open pit mines or mines in general, is you are required to have 2 feet down to test for dead on these vehicles, to service, to do any maintenance work, etc. And this mining vehicle we're talking about is powered by 2200 volts DC for the batteries.
It has individual PDUs, power distribution units, and there's imagine a mobile power distribution system. So
Yep.
like something that you would have in a physical site, this is transposed onto a mining vehicle.
Yep. And sometimes, and it's not just with this vehicle we're talking about, with some other vehicles where these batteries lie aren't necessarily always accessible with both feet on the ground to confirm dead. So with our ChekVolts, whether it's the 3000 volt DC or our 1 kV versions with the 8 feet leads, we can kind of attach the point of work of where these batteries are to confirm dead and bring the device where you can have both feet safely in the ground to confirm dead, to do your phase to phase to ground.
I just want to add a quick point that I think holds a lot of weight. So as Ben mentioned, these are externally mounted devices that are acting as an extension of your point of work. We're not changing your lockout tagout procedure, right? We're just allowing you to do it in a much safer and efficient way by keeping the enclosure door closed and reducing the overall incident energy or arc potential of that potential interaction, right? So you still have the ability to walk up with your trusty voltmeter or multimeter, test each phase conductor, phase to phase to ground, to ensure that you've truly isolated the power. And on top of that, what's great about the ChekVolt device, anyone that knows me and has had some exposure to Grace, you probably recognize, I guess they're called voltage lights, or sometimes like pucks, or presence of voltage indicators, or contact test points. The ChekVolt actually combines the technology of not only our voltage indicator, but with our contact test points.
Yep.
So it is a 2-in-1 device. It's also UL listed. On top of that, it does carry an ingress protection rating of IP69.
Yep.
It's also built with a potted construction and current limiting resistors. What does current limiting resistors mean? Like, why is that important?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, you're in luck. That means that it's touch and finger safe rated.
Yep.
So it does carry an IP2X rating.
It does. And as we know, according to Ohm's law, it's not as much the voltage as a worry as a danger. It's more the current or amps. So within the ChekVolt, it has the 1 kV version has 164 kilo ohm high impedance resistor. So I think the math brings it down to about, for a 480 application, typically around 1.5 milliamps. So it's well under the OSHA touch safe level. So not that we recommend always trying that out by any means, but it is a touch safe device, finger safe device. And then we kind of brought that technology and added to that for our 3 kV unit. So we wanted to listen to our customer base for the solar electric vehicle space of, hey, this is what the voltage we are starting to use and needing to go up to produce these batteries, or for our production lines, 1500 volts DC or 2200 volts DC. But not everybody has the above 1000 volt multimeter on them, or special tips to be able to test for dead on these things. So then we had to think of, all right, how can we do this safely and that's going to be most efficient for these facilities? So Chris, how did we do that, or what did we do to be able to allow this to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just want to highlight this product again here real quick. So the way that we're actually able to do that, on top of the potted construction and the built-in current limiting resistors, this device is designed with a 10-to-1 voltage divider. So in essence, what that means to you as a user, say you have a voltage power system that is 2000 volts. Mm-hmm. So with that 10-to-1 voltage divider, it actually steps that 2 kV down to 200 volts.
Yep.
So it still allows you to use your standard 1000 volt rated meter, yep, and perform that contact absence of voltage test, phase to phase and phase to ground. I do want to pause for just a second. So yeah, I see a question in the chat. It says, can these be wired in to extend outside of a room for either batteries or capacitors? Again, I think I understand your question, and I actually have an example of a case study that we did with a wastewater facility. So if I think I understand your question correctly, there's not any reason that we couldn't mount this in, say, like a polycarbonate box that then in turn you route conduit to your actual application to make a small little knockout that then you in turn wire into your actual point of work or wherever you're trying to terminate the leads. Yep. I would be curious about, it sounds like you want to take this out of where the capacitors or the battery bank lives currently. So I guess I would challenge you to kind of help me understand the overall distance.
Yep.
But I mean, that's the great thing about Grace is that, like reach out to us. And a lot of these products are manufactured here, like I mentioned, and that allows us to kind of be more nimble, be more innovative, and kind of tailor fit these applications based on your requirements.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the short answer is yes, that is something totally doable. The questions is, as long as we can do a 30 mil knockout into something, and then it can be wired parallel into the areas of point of work for the battery or capacitors. And like Chris said, like it can easily, the leads can be wrapped around conduit, et cetera, or inside conduit. And I think the only question mark here is what the distance is, just because our standard leads are 8 feet. But then once you get to 10 feet and above, you do have to worry about the tap rule. So there is some considerations there for distance. So that would be I think the main point of concern or question that would kind of come up from this. So depending on the distance, but like Chris said, more than happy to have a chat and a conversation with you to understand further about the application.
So good question. And I just want to take a second and pause and, just kind of ask you guys, have you guys been exposed to Grace ports? Have you been exposed to our permanent electrical safety devices? What type, do you have customers that use these devices? What specific vertical or industry? And what is the actual application?
Yep.
I would love to mock something up, throw in custom logos, custom text, but really we value this type of feedback. So I would love to hear kind of your initial thoughts if you haven't been exposed to these types of products. And if you have, where have you used it? Yep. Reach out to us and talk to us about the application and what is the added benefit to you as the user? I mean, we have this idea in mind that we, like I said, we believe that we're saving lives with these products. We're making things more safe, efficient. You're able to scale and kind of fine tune and rework your electrical safety programs. But, maybe there's something that we're not thinking about that allows us to kind of think outside of our confined day-to-day processes and really kind of start to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we do like to be collaborative and partner with you guys to figure out new applications, use cases for our devices to understand all areas, how potentially might people be thinking of using our stuff and how can we innovate forward in that. A lot of our innovations always come from feedback from people who are using our devices. You're working with them every single day, and we'd love to hear feedback on areas we can improve or areas we can expand into to further help you make a safer, more efficient facility.
I love this. There's some more questions that have popped in. So the first question is, how is this different to the VeriSafe from Panduit?
It's a great question. So basically the main difference is the VeriSafe from Panduit and versus our ChekVolt or permanent electrical safety devices is the Panduit VeriSafe is a push button. So you push a button and then it does the electrical lockout tagout for
continuity testing, and it's all internal to the device itself.
Yep, it's all internal to the device itself.
UL listed to UL 1436 listed. I believe SIL 3, I believe. And as Ben's kind of alluding to, is it's all kind of contained within the device itself. You push the button, it'll do that continuity test and spit out, green, red, yellow LED to confirm whether or not the voltage is absent.
Yeah, the lights basically indicate if it's dead or if you still have live voltage or hazardous voltage present. So the main difference I would say is that one, the AVT is a push button. So it depends on, if I guess the preference is if you want to use a push button and utilize that for electrical lockout tagout, whether as the ChekVolt is for our multimeter. So you're still allowed to use your standard multimeter to confirm dead and electrical lockout tagout.
And this what I'm about to say will also tie into a question here. It says, apart from its listing, how does this meet the requirements of NFPA 70E? So Ben, you kind of alluded to that. Again, our permanent electrical safety device is line voltage powered. So there are no batteries associated with this device. As I mentioned before, it is built with a potted construction, current limiting resistors. And then if you opt for the lower voltage device, it will have that 10-to-1 voltage divider. But the idea here is that our product is UL listed, meeting UL 61010 standard, and it complies to the rule That's within Article 120.6, the process for establishing an electrically safe working condition.
Yep. So originally when they with the permanent electrical safety devices and devices like ABT that have come out, they created an exception for those ABT
I
type.
believe in 2018.
I think it was 2018. Yeah. So you have 120.6 as Chris alluded to in NFPA 70E, where there'll be a area of an exception essentially that includes the ABT type device. Well, where ours for NFPA 70E 120.6, as Chris alluded to, is a UL 61010 rated device, which basically qualifies as the rule for 120.6.
Yeah, and that's like
NFPA
performing a contact test with an adequately rated portable test instrument. In essence, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but we call this a dead live test.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, what that means is you're testing your meter to a known voltage source to ensure that it's field calibrated and working as it should. We also add redundancy into this process. We recommend testing live through the actual permanent electrical safety device, doing your absence of voltage and presence of voltage verification, testing phase to phase, phase to ground, lock or disconnect your isolator switch or your isolator, test it dead at the actual device itself through the permanent electrical safety device, and then again, testing your meter to a known voltage source to wrap that out.
Yeah, 100%. And I would always say if you want some more clarity within NFPA 70E or anything like that on how our devices or anything really kind of goes into it, we can always connect you with a couple contacts that we have that are on the board.
Are you pitching the expert network there? Plugging that team?
The expert network, and then we have a few contacts that do stuff with, they're actually on the board of NFPA 70E as well, so they can help clarify any questions that you have if you want it to hear from not just us, but some others as well that deal with the code basically day in and day out.